Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the second episode of the Casket Minds podcast. So we said that we were going to be a weekly podcast. We lied. There was a lot of thoughts um, and predictions that did not go our way when it came to the Sony PlayStation Showcase of 2023, and I think that might be the biggest understatement in the entire century. Uh, but nonetheless, here we are back again, just a few days after our inaugural episode of the Casket Mind podcast. And that's where I want to start the show. Um, I want to thank every person who has reached out, shared, communicated with us about the podcast. The feedback and the reception has been pretty overwhelming. Um, Listening to everyone's thoughts, voices, and concerns about the podcast has been awesome. And I've loved it. So keep that coming, please. I just want to thank you guys again for listening and supporting Drew and I's passion project, as it were. So I want to introduce Drew again and just say hello, Drew. I guess.
Hello, Drew.
Hey, Drew. Welcome back. Are you excited to talk some more PlayStation?
I am excited, but not for the reasons that I wish I was.
See, part of me wishes that we would have talked about this last night because so the more I thought about the showcase last night, the more angry I got and the less I liked the showcase. But we're going to get into that and more because this is the Casket Minds podcast. Normally, we come to you on a week-to-week basis, but it's E3 season, like we said, or the fake E3 season, as it were. And we just wanted to give you some thoughts. We wanted to cover our predictions because, next week's episode is going to be just solely based on Summer Game Fest. And that's a massive show. I think it's at least 2 hours. That's going to be where the meat of third-party stuff is going to be. And I think that Drew and I are both ecstatic to talk about those games. But we wanted to come back to you this week and talk to you about, we want to start at our predictions. So I'm going to go through our predictions. If you haven't listened to the first episode yet and you're just wanting to hear a reaction to that, that's totally fine. I understand that some of that prediction stuff is now outdated because it already happened, so you don't really care about the predictions. So we're just gonna give you a quick rundown. A too long didn't listen, if you will. So I predicted. Okay, Drew. Before I do this, who do you think had more points between the two of us?
Me.
Yeah, it's not even close. So for that reason, I'm gonna start with you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So Drew's first pick was that Firewalk Studios' next game would be revealed, and his caveat was that it would be a multiplayer game. Drew got a point for Firewalk being there, and he got a point for the caveat. And then we're gonna get into some goose eggs real quick. Drew predicted that Ben's next game would be there, and that Grand Theft Auto 6 was going to be there. Listen, folks, if you've seen the PlayStation showcase, you understand that it wasn't just us, okay? So don't give us too much crap. So a lot of people thought that, hey, it's been 622 days since the last PlayStation showcase. Surely, we're going to get some first party stuff. We'll get into that later. We'll continue with Drew's fourth pick. Haven Studios, new IP. He was correct. It opened the show. Very interesting, by the way. When they opened with Haven, I was like, we're gonna go in two different directions, right? Like, either Sony has everything to show today, or they're not as confident in their showcase as we thought they were. And it was the latter. But that's fine. We're gonna get into that in just a few minutes. To round out Drew's picks, he said that Returnal 2 from Housemarque was going to be there. No mention of Housemarque whatsoever. Isn't that a little bit shocking?
Very shocking. Like, honestly, I felt like out of all of my picks, I felt like Housemarque was probably the most realistic one. Just because, like we talked about in the last episode, they were acquired so freaking fast. Like literally like right after Returnal came out, like a few months or something like that. They were acquired by Sony. So I was like, surely they're gonna show something, right? But guess not.
Yeah, they we did not think properly, I suppose. So to round out Drew's last two selections, we did a long shot, and then we did something that we thought that was realistic, uh, but probably wasn't going to be there. Um, Drew picked two great things that we wish were there, but unfortunately we were sold short. He said that Corey Barlog from Sony Santa Monica, the God of War 2018's game director, he did not do Ragnarok's. He was not the director behind Ragnarok, so um, he's probably been free since 2019, and he's probably been working on something. And that's all but confirmed, essentially. Yeah, we really thought it was going to be there. It wasn't, and that's that. And then for Drew's long shot, he said that Uncharted, the next installment, I suppose, or next in line for Uncharted would be there. And yeah, I'm gonna get to that when I get to my picks, because I gave Naughty Dog a lot of love, and Naughty Dog did not give me anything back in return, and that hurts, Naughty Dog, and that hurts really bad.
It really does.
So so my picks, I'll go through these pretty quick because all but one are goose eggs. So, and I don't even get a full point, Drew. I don't even get one full point. I swung for the fences, man, and I came up short. All right.
Yeah.
So my first pick was that The Last of Us multiplayer was going to be there. Whatever that is, factions, whatever Naughty Dog has been working on was going to be there. It wasn't. Naughty Dog wasn't there in any capacity. So the 7 picks that I made, 3 of them were Naughty Dog related, and they ghosted me, like straight up. You think they were Bungie the way they ghosted me?
uh,
That was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
that was.
Off the top of the dome. I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, so my second pick was a multi-layered pick, and that's where my only points come from. I said that PlayStation was going to acquire Konami. I was wrong. I said that Metal Gear Solid 3 was there, which it was. I'm taking my third of a point and running away with it. And then I said that Kojima would get the blessing. He did not. But I'm not taking the points for this, but the original cast, the voice acting cast, is back, which is great. But no Kojima. So Death Stranding 2, probably all but confirmed for Summer Game Fest, but that's next week's topic, so we'll hold off for that. All right, so I'll quickly run through it because the rest did not happen, and it makes me very sad. So I said Final Fantasy VII Rebirth would be there. No idea why I said that, but I did. Rise of the Ronin, not there. That's a Team Ninja game, not there again. Wolverine, I suspected that, hey, I mean, they announced Wolverine when they announced the Venom aspect to Spider-Man 2 a couple years ago, and it just wasn't there. And then for my long shot and my realistic pick that I didn't think was going to happen was I said that the Last of Us director's cut would be tied into the multiplayer game from Naughty Dog. That wasn't there, and neither was Naughty Dog's new IP. So as far as prediction goes, Drewby got 3 points. I got a third of a point.
Oof.
Give me them thoughts, Drew. Did I swing too high?
No. I don't think either of us swung too high. And I mean, like we talked about before, we had like 2 or more years of a gap between the last showcase. This was PlayStation's time to wow all of the PlayStation fans, because like the PS5 is like out in the world now. Like it's been a few years, people have them now, a lot more than they did before. And this was the perfect time to set expectations, to give us something to look forward to for first party titles. And honestly, for the most part, it felt like we got way more third party than first party titles. And then the first party titles that we did end up getting uh, were kind of underwhelming for the most part. And so I don't know, like, some people may say that our expectations are too high, but I fully disagree because it's been years and they needed to give us a taste of what's next for PlayStation, what's next for the PS5. Um because I mean, like, aside from Spider-Man, like Spider-Man is the only single player first party game from PlayStation that we know of. And that didn't even get a release date. Gosh, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So Drew kind of already started the conversation, but we're going to switch topics. Well, not topics necessarily, because this is the Casket Minds PS Showcase recap. So let's dive into that and let's give a little bit of our quick thoughts before we're going to go through everything that was there. We're not going to comment on everything. We just want to give you a rundown in case you did not get to watch the hour-long showcase yesterday. That's totally fine. That's what we're here to do. We're just going to give you what was announced, a little bit about it. We don't have comments on everything because let's be honest, not a lot was there in terms of information because most of the information came from PS blogs after the showcase. But yeah, what Drewy said was entirely true, and I think that Shinobi 602 on Twitter said it best. He was after the showcase yesterday. He said, "You know, I don't think that I know any more about what's coming from PlayStation than I did before this showcase." And I think that speaks volumes as to what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, we got some first game announced first part. I apologize. We got some PlayStation first party announcements, but most of those came in the form of CG trailers. Hardly any gameplay was shown for any of the first party stuff outside of Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Um,
Can I say something about that real quick?
Absolutely, go ahead.
The thing that like really gets me about that, because I don't hate CG trailers.
No.
Um like I'm fine with them, especially when it comes from a developer that we know.
Yes.
But here's the problem. For the most part, all of the CG trailers that we got for first party titles were from the new studios that they picked up that haven't released any games yet, like Haven and Firewalk. Um,
Yep.
and both of their trailers didn't really give a lot of like, okay, what is this game? Like, we don't have any information on what they're doing aside from like maybe a little bit of the aesthetic. Um, which in contrast, uh, the one first party trailer that I actually thought was pretty fantastic was Marathons, because you know it's an existing franchise. It's coming from Bungie, so like we know and love them. They don't need to like show us full gameplay yet, even though I would have preferred that. Um,
Yeah.
but they also uploaded a Vidoc after the show and kind of took a deep dive of like what the game is. They didn't show any gameplay, but there's a little bit of behind the scenes stuff and like little tiny snippets of gameplay if you like look close enough on like monitors in the background,
Mhm.
um, from their studio and everything. Uh, but I'm like, man, why wasn't that in the show? Like, the like stuff like that where you're explaining what the games are, like that should have been within the showcase, I feel like. um and so if we got a CG trailer from Santa Monica Studios with like Cory Barlog's new game, or we got a CG trailer for a new IP from Naughty Dog, or a CG trailer from uh gosh, what's the Sucker Punch for like a new
Mhm.
Ghost of Tsushima or something like that, right? I would have been fine with that. Like that would have hyped me up because it's like, okay, I those developers have already set my expectations from their previous releases. So just having a little tease is enough to get me excited, right? Um
Yeah.
so yeah, I just wanted to say that because like I feel like that it was a terrible decision to show off these new IPs uh from developers that we don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think you're preaching. You're absolutely spot on in terms of the first party stuff that we got. Um, everything minus Spider-Man 2 was a CG trailer from a studio that either um, hasn't proved themselves, they're brand new, or it's a brand new IP. And there's not much to go off of from the showcase itself unless you go to the PS blog, in which case you can learn more. But obviously, no, I mean, most people don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
sell the game when you say you're going to sell the game. And I think that's another problem with this. And the biggest problem that I had yesterday, we were talking with a couple of our friends during and after the showcase, and one was saying that, like, since this was announced so fast, there wasn't much turnover. He wasn't expecting much, and I disagreed because it comes down to marketing, right? So Sony has two things. They have the state of play and they have the showcase. Traditionally, the showcases are the first party. We're wowing you. We're throwing games at the wall, and you're just gonna watch. And that's what the showcase was in terms of presentation, but not content. Um,
Yeah.
I love the way that it was presented in terms of, they showed the first game. Jim Ryan came up. They were like, he spoke for what, like maybe 50 words of dialogue, and then it was game, 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 game.
Yeah.
It was Sony who did that at E3 in like 15, I think, 2016 maybe. And they were just like banger, banger, banger. And
Yeah.
when it comes to showcases and like this time of year, that's what we expect out of a showcase. Now, a state of play traditionally is you have one big game at the end, you're doing a deep dive into it, and then the rest of it is smaller announcements and third party. And that's what this was, a state of play that was extended for probably maybe even double the length of state of plays. Traditionally, state of plays are like 20 to 40 minutes. So if you go into this with the mindset of it not being a showcase, I think this showcase did a lot better than most people want to give it credit for. But that's not what we were sold. Um, the last, I think we've only had two other showcases, maybe three, but we listed them on the previous episode of like, we got Spider-Man in the Venom tease, Wolverine, God of War Ragnarok trailer, and the biggest thing to come out of this was Spider-Man, and it didn't get a release date. And we're gonna get into that more, but I just think it's important to fairly criticize Sony. And I'm one of Sony's biggest fans. I won't lie about it. I won't beat around the bush, but I also am a firm believer in criticizing things that you love, even if, like, when they mess up, you slap them on the wrist, right? And that's what I think we're going to try and do here, is just voice our criticisms and concern. And that's what the meat of this episode is going to be about. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's break down what we saw at the PlayStation Showcase. So we mentioned it before, but we're gonna go through everything listed here and everything shown. So we open up the PlayStation Studios logo. Hype. It's a great little thing. They copied the Marvel sizzle reel in the very beginning of Marvel movies, and that wasn't there, but I just think it's very cool, so I wanted to mention it.
Yeah.
Uh, they showed the PlayStation Studios logo. It's beautiful. It's simplistic. It's great. And it's Haven's multiplayer game, Fair Games. Now this is the heist one, correct?
I guess.
Yes. This one's like it's like a PvP heist
Yeah,
game.
yeah. I just say I guess because we like know nothing about it.
Yeah, and he's correct because again, we're going to talk about this over and over, and we're going to beat the dead horse. And I get it, and I know it's going to be tiring, but I think if you didn't watch the showcase, it's important to know that Sony really fumbled the bag here. It was a CG trailer. If it didn't have that PlayStation logo at the very front of the showcase, I would have thought this was a Ubisoft game.
Yeah.
And that's not
Or an
necessarily...
EA game.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
Sega.
Yes.
I was watching Kind of Funny, and they were talking about how it reminded them of Hyenas, that one Sega like heist game. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, like literally, like the art style was so similar.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not trying to. When I say it's a Ubisoft or an EA game, I'm not necessarily trying to diss it. But when you see the PlayStation logo, you expect a certain quality, right? You expect. We didn't know what Haven was bringing to the table, so I expected something more, something different. But all we got here was um, and once again, a CG trailer, and it didn't move the needle for me. I don't know much else about it besides that it's a PvP heist game, that it's about eating the rich and, you know, relevancy things, I suppose. Do you have any more thoughts on Fair Games?
Um, I guess my only other thoughts is that they didn't share a release window, which was really weird. Um, and then also, um, oh, shoot, I had something else on my mind, but it just kind of escaped me. Oh well, I guess we can just move on.
All right, so the second game shown was Helldivers 2. This is from Arrowhead Studios. Helldivers, I don't know if it was on anything other than the Vita. I'm sure it was, but if I remember correctly, it was like an over the top shooter that I remember playing it. It's on Steam apparently. So I'm just looking this up really quickly. It was on PlayStation 4, PS3, Vita, and Steam and Windows apparently. Uh, so this was like an overhead shooter, and I liked it. I thought it was pretty fun. I didn't play a ton of it, but I mean, it's an over the like a, I don't want to say a twin stick shooter, but you know what I'm referencing.
Yeah, yeah.
They brought the camera down. It's almost like a over the shoulder third person shooter now. I think it looks pretty fun.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I really like um what I'm seeing of it so far. It wasn't like one of those games that like absolutely blew me away. But I will say I thought the trailer was like really fantastic because it was like a blend of like CGI and then they showed like raw gameplay footage. It wasn't
Yes.
like a gameplay demo, but it was all like in engine like legitimate gameplay. And so I liked how they blended that together, and I loved the style of like trailer that they did, and how like the whole trailer was kind of it was almost like propaganda for like these hell divers like trying to get you to like join the military and everything. And I really liked that spin on it, so I thought it was a really fun trailer. And the game does look like it's going to be a ton of fun. So it's definitely something I would be more than willing to try out and play. Um,
Mhm.
but again, it wasn't like my mind's been blown and I'm gonna like sell my soul to this game like I would for a lot of first party PlayStation games or things like that.
Okay, so I'm gonna make two quick points. To the last point, this is like a double A game from like a second party studio. So Sony doesn't own this studio, but they're kind of like in bed with them, kind of like they were with Housemarque before the Returnal, and then they bought them. Um, it's kind of that ordeal. So like they pay them to make the game, but they don't own the studio.
Gotcha.
Um, and then the other point was that, so for I believe almost all of the multiplayer first party stuff, it's listed as PS5 and PC.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't clarify if it's coming to PC later or if it's going to launch on both. But I think it's interesting that they're already marketing the PC thing. So I'm thinking that they might come to PC um, day one,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
and because of that, so this is going to be like the topic of the show later, and we'll get into this later, but I have concerns with that, and it's not me being like an entitled console warrior because I have a beefy PC. I can play any game that I want to on PC. It's just from the PlayStation standpoint, so we'll get to that later. Let's continue with Immortals of Avium. Is that how you say that?
I think it's like, yeah, Avian or Avion, I'm not sure.
Okay, so either way, it's an EA original. It's out July 20th. It looks good at times and then mid at times. I mean, it looks
Yeah.
like it could be fun, but they're throwing so much at you and there's so much color, and like the ground is brown. And I know that sounds stupid, but it's just the color palette doesn't match, and it just feels weird, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty much all I have to say on that one.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
did you play the original Ghost Runners?
I have not. But I've always wanted to. I think it looks awesome.
Same.
Um, and the sequel, like that was honestly like out of the third party titles, that was one that like really hyped me up because that was a sick trailer. The gameplay looks fantastic, and from what I know of the first game, it looks like a really uh large leap from where they were before. Just like a lot more varied gameplay, and it like looks like a complete evolution. Um, so that's definitely one that, again, like sadly wasn't a first party title, but it's a game that I would definitely consider playing.
Right. So that's what I was getting to is that they announced Ghost Runners 2 yesterday. Drew and I have neither played it, but we both want to. It's like a cyberpunkish, almost not a samurai, but I mean you got like swords and stuff. It's very cyberpunkish, but not the game. More so the genre. I think bright colors and very neon, very cool stuff. It's coming out in 2023, so I very much am looking forward to that because it, like Drew said, it does look like an evolution of what of what kind of like a double A game. I think Ghost Runners one kind of fit into that double A space, and I think that this one has the premise to do more in that space and push the boundaries of a double A game.
Yeah,
And it looks really swell.
yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And then this is the game of the show for me that isn't Spider-Man 2. Um, it is a very, very cool trailer. And if there was one thing that I could show you from this showcase that wasn't Spider-Man 2, um, I would incentivize you to go to YouTube immediately and look up the Phantom Blade Zero. Um, this trailer blew me away. It came out of nowhere. I didn't know a thing about it when the game studio logo popped up. I was like, huh? Who is this? A
Yeah,
quick Google search showed me that it was a Chinese mobile developer, in which there are multiple of these games. This is the first console version of this game and of, I think, their career as well. Um, but it's a samurai game, and you play as a guy named Soul, and you I think you either work for or work against something called the Order. You're framed for killing a someone in the patriarchy, and in the ensuing manhunt, you are wounded, and a healer heals you, but the cure only lasts 66 days. So you have to go through and you have to, I guess, find the people and kill them, and maybe you get cured. I don't know. We'll have to see. But from a gameplay perspective, it looked really interesting because it's a beautiful looking game. I think
yeah,
um, it's probably on the lower side of a AAA game, but it looks beautiful. The gameplay looks super smooth. It reminded me a lot of Sekiro from Software, but upon the showcase ending, there was a PlayStation blog post about it. It's a hack and slash RPG, and I kind of like that more. But they also said it was challenging, so I'm wondering if it's like Super Devil May Cry-ish as well.
yeah. If it is like Devil May Cry, that would be super awesome because I love those games. Um, but yeah, like you were saying, this game really wowed me. I honestly like I thought it was gonna be a first party game just with like how high quality it looks. Um, I love how fluid and like fast the combat and the movement was. Um, and just like how intuitive everything about the gameplay was. Like it didn't just feel like a hack and slash game. You know, like there was a moment where the main character, he's like fighting a boss, and he like hides behind a pillar, like he's like trying to hide from the boss and everything. But there's like another moment where he like runs up another pillar and like does a jumping attack, and it I was just like, dang, like this has like almost like a sandbox kind of feel to it. You know, it doesn't just feel like a standard third person hack and slash. Um,
Agreed.
it looks like there's going to be a lot of depth to the gameplay. So I'm super hyped for this game.
Yeah, agreed. Like I said, that was my game of the showcase. Very much looking forward to that and news on that. I believe that is a PS5 and PC game.
Yes, that's
Uh,
correct.
so we're gonna keep our eyes on that one for sure. But moving on from there, we got Sword of the Sea, which is from Journey's creator and the devs of The Pathless and Abzu. Did this do anything for you?
So I have never played Journey or Abzu. I've always wanted to. I just haven't gotten around to them. Um, I really like this trailer. Like, I think their art style, like, I don't know, they just have this unique art style that they've kind of nailed down. And so I like how it almost, the way it looks and feels is almost like a spiritual successor in a way to Journey. And I've just heard nothing but fantastic things about that game. It's been on my watch list for like, or playlist for like a long while. Sorry, I got,
Letterbox on the mind.
yeah, I got Letterbox on the mind. But yeah, like so the trailer I really liked, but it didn't again it didn't like do much for me. Which isn't like a negative thing, because it wasn't a bad trailer. It's just
Right.
yeah, that's not like usually the type of game that I'm gonna be like taking a lot away from in like a showcase. Um
Yeah.
so
Agreed.
I guess that's the way I'd put it.
Yeah, same here. I've always wanted to play Journey. I think that I've always heard that that game is special. I do plan on playing it before this because I am gonna be playing this. I think that it got my attention enough. It's a super nice indie looking game. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure.
So just continuing, this is gonna be kind of like a list off things because these are games that don't do anything for us. So the Talos Principle 2, it's apparently a first person puzzler. Uh, no idea. Don't Puzzle games aren't my ordeal. I think I like puzzles in games, but a game specifically just for puzzles, whatever, I guess.
Yeah, the only puzzle game that I've ever like been super into is Portal. Um
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
but like outside of that, yeah, like I do like puzzles in games, but I'm not like a puzzle game fanatic or anything.
Yeah,
Um
same here.
I will say like I thought it was like a solid trailer. Like the
Yeah,
game looks gorgeous and everything.
it does. It does.
And it has like a really unique aesthetic and stuff. So I'm like, hey, that's cool. I don't know anything about the first game. Would this be something I'd play? I don't know. um,
If it was
but
on Game
yeah,
Pass, maybe.
yeah. If it was on Game Pass or whatever Sony's equivalent is of that, I can't remember what it's called.
This is one of those that are coming to Xbox as well. So I mean, it's potentially could be there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I could definitely see that for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So the next up was Neva. It's the Gree developer with a 2024 release window. This is the one with the big white dog and the little white dog. Or I don't know if they're dogs, but the animals. Um, this struck a chord with me in terms of like emotionally.
Hmm.
I really want to know what the gameplay looks like, and once I see that, I think I'm far more down. But just
Yeah.
from that, cinematic trailer, um, it's a beautiful indie game that I don't even know how no I wouldn't even know what to compare it to. Um, but it's beautiful, and I think I definitely will be playing that one.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I never played the previous game. I've seen gameplay of it though, and it's also a gorgeous game and has great music. Um, so I'm definitely like willing to give this one a shot because I love this trailer honestly. Um, and yeah, I hope we do get to find out what kind of game it is soon. If it's like a Metroidvania like side scroller type of game, like something like Ori or what's that one game? Not Shovel Knight,
Hollow
uh,
Knight.
Hollow Knight. Yes.
Hmm.
If it's like something along those lines, I'd be like super down to play it
Yeah, the first thing that popped in my mind when it came to gameplay was Ori and the Blind Forest, and if it's anything like that, then I'm 100% in.
for sure.
So moving on, I don't think that we even have to say anything about this. Cat Quest 2.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it exists.
um, Next up was a game called Foam Stars. It is a PlayStation exclusive. It's coming to both 4 and 5 and PC. So if you're into games whatsoever, imagine the most blatant ripoff of Splatoon that you could ever think of, but make it significantly uglier by making it more realistic and making it look like cotton candy. That's what Foam Stars is. Um, I honestly just laughed at this entire thing. I think that
Yeah,
it's a joke. It's Square Enix trying too late to capitalize on Splatoon's hype,
hmm,
and I don't know. I just whatever. That
yeah,
game is going to come out dead on arrival. No one's going to play this unless it's free, and
for
then
sure.
even then, it's a weekend or a couple hour game, and they're uninstalling it. There's nothing there.
Yeah, and also like speaking of Splatoon as like a comparison, Splatoon has like so much more than like that single multiplayer mode. And the
Yeah,
vibes that I got from this trailer is it's just gonna be what we saw in this trailer. So it's like it absolutely like I feel like will be dead on arrival. Or you know like servers will like shut off in like a few months after release. Like it's just I don't know, it's honestly kind of sad like how much of a rip off it is of Splatoon.
it's soulless and blatant, and it's honestly kind of offensive.
Yeah, it honestly it feels like an AI generated game.
It really does. It's like, hey, make me a multiplayer game for the PlayStation from a competitor, and that's what it spit out, and it's
Yeah,
awful. And I don't want to diss studios or publishers and whatnot, but at the same time, it's like you're using up assets for this game, and you should know that this game is not gonna be something that catches people's attention. And I'm gonna put a pin in that because we're gonna get back to that as the topic of the show. Um, yeah, I I'm at a loss for words at this point. So we're gonna move on to the Plucky Squire, which is that game that like transitions from like 2D in the book to like 3D worlds. This game got me hyped.
yes, absolutely. Um, Devolver is publishing it, and so you know they have a really good eye for indie games like this. Um, actually, I recently picked this up as one of my draft pickups in our fantasy critic
Oh, I didn't even see that. That's
league.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So I picked it up like I don't know, maybe like a week or two ago. But yeah, like I've been hyped for this game. I can't remember when they first showed it off. It might have been at the Devolver showcase last year. Um,
Yeah,
I just I've seen a lot of good buzz around it, like people who have like gotten their hands on it and things like that. So yeah, I'm definitely hyped for this one. But again, something that we didn't mention earlier, a lot of these games that we talked about before have had no release windows. This one thankfully did, but it didn't have a release date, which I was kind of surprised by. Um,
mhm.
but yeah, great trailer. But again, I wish I feel like games like this, like and like these other multi-platform third-party games, are taking up a lot of room that should have been there for first-party stuff.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of filler in this thing that didn't need to be there. I feel like a lot of it was well, I mean, some of it has to be in a showcase. Like even the perfect
Yeah,
5 out of 5 showcases, like it has the filler, it has the stuff we don't care about, but like the bangers make up for it.
for
And there
sure.
just wasn't enough bangers from the first party to make up for this. And going back to your point about the release windows, at least half of the ones that we've talked about so far do not have windows, and if they do, it's only 2023 or 2024 with no solid release date minus the EA Originals game. It comes out July 20th, and I think that again, that could be another dead on arrival game if it's not on like an EA Play service thing. Um,
Uh,
And I think that you know this one before because we were talking during the showcase yesterday, and I was like, "Is this like a Lego Minecraft game?" And it's Teardown. Do you know anything about this game?
Yeah, all I know is it's been at showcases before. Um it was either shown off last year, or the year before, and then it's like a PC game. Um so it's like, yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like, man, like this is like a re-release. This is a port basically, right? Um and so it's like, why? Like this didn't have to be at the showcase. And I mean, like, I don't know like how well received this game is. I'm assuming it probably does have like good reviews on Steam because it just looks like one of those games. Um, but it's just like, why? Like, I don't know. Like, so when I saw the trailer of that, I'm just like, okay, I already know what this is. A lot of people already know what this is. It should have just been in a state of play.
Now we get to the game where I got my third of a point, ladies and gentlemen. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. So this started off with it's a cinematic trailer, and it's I honestly thought that this game was going to be uh, a Monster Hunter game. I won't lie, because it was, it's the animal, like, kind of. I mean, what's the thing where the animals eat the animals? What's that called?
Um, Gosh, now I'm blanking on it too.
Obviously, we're very scientific, and we're scientists, obviously.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But we go through this swamp jungle ordeal, and eventually we land on none other than Solid Snake, the Snake Eater himself. I don't know. I've never played Metal Gear. I don't. I'm excited as heck about this. I'm very hype about it. Um, but I wanted gameplay, and I
Yeah.
also want to note one thing that I noticed during the showcase. The trailer didn't have the developers logo nor the Konami logo. That was interesting.
Yeah, that was a little weird. And even I remember on Twitter, like Jeff Keighley was trying to tweet at Konami and be like, yeah, so who's working on the game? Which I guess like Konami did end up publicly announcing like who was working on it, and it was the rumored team. Is it Virtuous, right?
Virtuoso, I think.
Virtuoso, yeah, that's right. So yeah, they were like heavily rumored to be working on it, and that got confirmed, which is cool. But it was a really weird choice not to show either Konami or Virtuosa, like stamped on the trailer. Um, and then also like I feel like for most people, they probably wouldn't have expected it to be a Metal Gear trailer until right at the very end. It just,
Agreed. I didn't think that. I thought it was a Monster Hunter
yeah,
trailer.
like I was like, what is this? Um, yeah, I would have never guessed it. Which I mean, like it was an interesting trailer. Like I don't know, it was just like really unique, but not what I was expecting. And it's a damn shame we didn't get gameplay because that would have really stole the show. I feel like if they showed gameplay of Metal Gear. But PlayStation being the way that they were this showcase, were like, nah, we're not gonna show gameplay, because they're stinky. So yeah, and I mean, also, I guess like the only other thought that I have about the trailer is that, um, our boy Outlaw Jimmy or Cowboy Jimmy, whatever we called him in the last episode, he saw that trailer and he was like, you know what? I'm gonna stop playing through the Mortal Kombat series, which he was getting all hyped up about, and then he's like, I'm gonna change my personality to Metal Gear Solid now. Um, so yeah, it's a shame not only that we didn't get gameplay, but also that we've got a man down. Our boy Jimmy has betrayed us.
Walker, Texas Ranger, Jimmy Jam himself is lost to what we call Metal Gear. He's all finding them nukes or whatever they do in that game. Uh, but swiftly followed by the ending of that trailer was the announcement of Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1, which is Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3, with 2 and 3 being the HD collections from back in the day. I believe the 360 versions. I think PS3 got it as well, but I mostly know that from Xbox. And then it's just a port of what I would assume to be like the GOG uh, PC port. I don't know that for sure, but it's the older versions of these games. It's not remastered. Um, and Konami has renamed the remake because it's not going to be different. They're gonna hold it to a high standard when remastering it because of Metal Gear Solid fandom being so vast and passionate. But they renamed it Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, which is interesting. I think that's a good choice. It kind of makes it stand out from the other, what, 4 or 5 times this game has been remade and renamed. Uh, so yeah, that would have been the game of the showcase had we seen gameplay, but like Drew said, that was non-existent. So yeah, it is what it is. But you know, maybe we see that later down the road. We have an autumn release date for the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection.
Oh wow, I didn't
Uh,
even realize that.
yeah, it's autumn 2023.
Sweet.
So it's not a date; it's a window.
Yeah.
And there was no date or window, um, nor publishing or developer in that trailer for Delta. But we have to assume that's closer than we think. Hopefully, at least, because it's been heavily rumored for years. So let's hope that's true.
Yeah, maybe it'll be like an early 2024 release. You know,
I would I would like that a lot.
yeah, yeah, seriously. And with them releasing like the first collection of the classic games in autumn, like I feel like that would make a lot of sense, you know. Get the fans the classic games so they can like play those, get up to speed and everything. And then early 2024 you start with Metal Gear Solid 4 or sorry, 3 or Delta. Dang, dude.
Yeah,
There's so many Metal Gear Solids. But yeah, so I don't know. I think that would be a smart business decision, so I could see that happening. But yeah, hopefully we find out that release date ASAP.
and if you're wondering why 3 got the remake before the original, from what I know and understand, 3 is the first game chronologically. Um,
Correct.
so that's I think it's in the 60s or the 50s or something like that. So it's the first game in the story, just the third game to release in the Metal Gear Solid series. Uh, so yeah, that's kind of that's your Metal Gear news because that's pretty much all that they gave us. Both most of that information actually came after in various places, but we got the information and now you have the information. So we're glad to get there. We're gonna do a quick rundown of the remaining games because there's not a whole lot that I think that we should talk about, except for 2 that are coming up in a couple or not picks, but announcements. Um, but after those, until we get into the very end, there's not much to talk about. So there's a game called Towers of Agasaba. I guess I have a question mark beside that because I don't recall any other information about that. I don't even remember the trailer at this point. So
Yeah, I don't either, honestly.
yeah. And then we got a Final Fantasy 16 trailer. It's Final Fantasy 16. We've seen it a million times now. It's
Yeah,
just telling you it exists and it's coming out in less than a month. Go
which
pre-order it.
which is
That's what they want.
insanity. Like I feel like that shouldn't, at least like if you're gonna put that in the showcase, just throw that in at the beginning. Don't put it in the tail end because everyone knows that game's coming out.
Yeah,
Everyone's
exactly.
already like bought into it. So I'm like, just took a slot that didn't need to be taken again.
And it was a little bit longer. I think it was like a 2 minute, 2.5 minute trailer or something. We could have gotten that in a minute. Just
Yeah.
give a little story synopsis. Hey, it's coming out. We move on. But the next 2 games is the 2 games that I think that we could and maybe should talk about for a couple seconds before we just run down the rest of these. Alan Wake 2 was shown. 2 playable characters. You play as an African American female FBI agent, as well as Alan Wake. I forget the lady's name. and I apologize for that. But it seems that we're playing two playable characters. Um, Everything shown was in-game footage, not straight up gameplay, running on a PS5, confirmed by Remedy, and we are getting raw gameplay at Summer Game Fest in 2 weeks.
Yep. Oh no. Are you there?
No. Yeah, I'm here. I was just gonna let you say anything if you wanted to.
Oh, okay. I was like, no, not again. Um, yeah.
Any thoughts?
I just quick thoughts. I love the trailer. It looks freaking awesome. Um, I haven't beaten the first Alan Wake, which I know is like, you know, pretty shameful of me being an Xbot. But I do want to pick up the remake, or not the remake, but like remaster. At some point. Just because I mean, like, as cool as it is playing the original like 360 version, I'd much rather have an updated version that's much better. Um, but I think what I'll do is I'll probably play through that and finish Control before Alan Wake 2 comes out. I'm super stoked for this game. Um, I mean, if our name of the podcast gives anything away, we're big fans of like spooky stuff. So I'm all about horror games, and we've had a great, great amount of horror games in like the past year, especially with like Resident Evil 4. So yeah, I'm super hyped for this game, and I can't wait to see proper gameplay of it. Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I did not. I played the original Alan Wake back when it released in like 2011 or so. Maybe before that, I can't remember. It was 360 days. I played a little bit of it. I think it might have been a demo though. I never played the full game. I do own the remastered, and I did want to give you a heads up while you were saying all that. I looked it up on
Yeah.
Xbox and PlayStation. The Alan Wake remaster is now on sale for $12.
All right. Well, I
Uh,
know what I'm doing later.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to grab that, that is a fantastic sale. It's normally $30, but it's on sale for pretty much a third of that. So, um, yeah, I if you haven't upgraded to the next gen consoles, it is cross buy. So if you buy it for PS4 or the Xbox One, has the smart delivery or the upgraded free upgrade for PS5. So I think that'd be a smart thing to do is just go and grab that because if you haven't played, now would be a great time to buy it. $12. I mean, that's a kind of like a meal when you go out to a restaurant nowadays. So nowadays, did I say that right? I don't know what happened right there. But anyway, moving on. The next thing shown was Assassin's Creed Mirage, and this was very exciting for me. I am a
Mm-hmm.
long time day one Assassin's Creed fan.
And
Uh, and I'll never forget the day I got my 360 because I got it after launch. The first game that I got was Assassin's Creed, and then WWE. Back then it was what SmackDown versus Raw 2008, and I remember I always do the title matches first so I can see the titles, and like on the 360, the belts were super shiny and it made me stoked. That's a tangent. But back to Assassin's Creed. Um, if you're unaware, Assassin's Creed took a turn about 3 games ago with Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. It's more like it's less Assassin's Creedy, in the sense of what it used to be. You know, where you were actual assassins and stuff. It's more of like an open world RPG at this point. It's still very cool. It's very good, but as someone who's clamoring for the return of the old Assassin's Creed, you know, scaling the buildings, parkour, the leap of faith into the haystack. This is
an
that.
emphasis on stealth too.
Yes. You feel like an assassin again. You look like an assassin again. You look like what's Altair. That's who you look like from the gameplay we saw. It was an in-game uh in-engine footage with some gameplay in there, but not like, you know, like a cut to just straight up gameplay that was just intersected in there. It looks very good with a release date. Oh, I should say this. Alan Wake 2 did get a release date of October 17th. Mirage got a release date of October 12th. So those games are very close.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. And you got any thoughts on Mirage or no?
Um, Other than I'm like super happy to return to the classic style of Assassin's Creed. I don't have many thoughts. I'm already sold on the game. I, like, honestly, don't even need to see a gameplay demo. Like, that's how great this trailer was. But I know we're gonna be getting like proper gameplay at the Ubisoft Connect, which is on the 13th of June. So that'll
Yep.
be coming up real soon. So yeah, I'm super stoked to get my hands on this game.
Yeah, likewise. Like Drew said, that trailer nailed everything that you would need if you wanted this kind of game again. I don't even need to see the gameplay at Ubisoft to, I'm there day one. I want that. I need that. We need that. So yeah, so we're gonna quickly go through these because I don't think there's a lot of note. So if any of these titles or small descriptions interest you, I would suggest to go look them up on YouTube. But honestly, I'm not sure if anyone at all is interested in these, and that's the kind of the problem with the showcase at all, or overall, I should say. So, Revenant Hill, I wrote down it's a cat game. It's not like the Stray Cat game. It looks like more indie-ish. Uh, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. I wrote down anime, and I do not care because it looked. I don't even know. Uh, Moving on, Street Fighter 6 trailer. It's coming. It's out next week. Next, actually, since if you're hearing this on Friday, it is a week from today. If you're hearing this later, then it's June 2nd. Yeah, Street Fighter's coming. Get excited. Uh, One of the two ones that I did appreciate of these last little like midsection indie stuff was Ultros, and that's a PS4, PS5, PC game. Um, Very vibrant and bright. It reminded me of Hollow Knight in the sense. Um, Really cool looking. 2024 release window. I would suggest go looking that up if you're into indie side scrollers, potentially Metroidvania games. Um, yeah, Towers of Fantasy. We do not care. Dragon's Dogma 2. Now this one is the other one that I'm like, okay, this looks fantastic, but I did not play the first one. It's always on sale on Steam, so I think I'm gonna go pick that up if it is on sale right now. And I think that I got the email the other day because I keep it in my wish list for whatever reason,
Yeah.
and it's always on sale for like $5-6. So I need to go snag that and just bite the bullet and see what it's all about because the second trailer looked really good.
Yeah,
Uh,
you should definitely try it out. It's really awesome. I haven't played a huge amount of it, but I picked it up like a few years ago when it was on sale. The combat is like really unique in the way that it's almost like a blend of like a Monster Hunter and like a hack and slash and an RPG like all in one. So it's just got its own unique like gameplay style. Even like some Shadow of Colossus kind of influence where you can like hop on like giant like monsters and like start attacking them while you're like climbing up them and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting game, and I'm super stoked for all like the massive diehard fans that have been wanting this for who knows how long now. Um, so yeah, really solid trailer. I'm looking forward to this game, but again, it's another third party game, so
yep, that's Dragon's Dogma. I would recommend going to see that trailer. I think it's pretty cool, especially if you like the fantasy stuff. Yeah. So the next one was Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2. The only thing I wrote was Drew may like question mark. And I don't know if he genuinely likes Five Nights at Freddy's or just likes picking on it and memeing it, but either way, that was my note for that game.
no, yeah, I Five Nights at Freddy's is just an absolute meme to me. Um, I do want to see the movie just for the fact that it could be either genuinely terrible and funny to laugh at, or it could be so bad that it's good. And could be like a great time. Um, but yeah, I think those games are just they're milking it so hard. And
So hard.
like like I don't know, we were like before we started recording, we were talking about how at some of the other PlayStation showcases and like state of plays and stuff, there's been a lot of like Five Nights at Freddy's games in like the past like 5 years. So it's just like, damn, dude, like slow down a bit.
Yeah, they're oversaturating their own IP in a market that's already like niche. So like I don't understand it, but I mean they had to be making money because they keep making these things. So if there's an audience for it, we're just not the audience. Help Wanted 2 out sometime. I think next year. I think they said, but now we go into a small segment um, of PSVR 2. Now, some people think that this was a poor showing, but me personally, I think that every game shown here looked kind of impressive for VR. Uh, and while it didn't move the needle, Sony is kind of doing like the the death by a thousand cuts in a good way for me of like each state of play and showcase they show 3 to 5 to maybe 6 VR projects, and I'm always like, you know, they didn't sell me on this here. But once you look back and see how much is actually on PSVR 2 now, via ports from the old one and the new one, uh, it's kind of impressive. And I think the only thing that's really holding me back besides the price point is Half-Life Alex. If that ever comes to PSVR 2, I will be stoked. Because I mean, we have Horizon, we have now 2 or 3 Resident Evils that you can play in VR. And I'm a big Resident Evil guy, so that's very appealing to me. Um, and it also hits on the first game shown. Resident Evil 4 remake is on PSVR 2. Arizona Sunshine 2, which is like a it reminded me of like Borderlands humor without claptrap, more zombies than like raiders type of enemies. Did you like that trailer? I thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah, I know. I thought that trailer is pretty funny as well. That's the type of VR game that I would definitely try out. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I agree. To keep that moving, Crossfire, Sierra Squad. This looked pretty good for VR standards. Um, I thought it was more Call of Duty like than Crossfire, but hey, I mean, if you like shooters in VR, there you go. There was a game called Synapse, which has a July 4th release date, and it looked pretty neat. Uh, Not a console seller or I guess a unit seller when you're talking about PSVR 2, but I think it'd be a fun little experience. And then the Queen pack for Beat Saber. Beat Saber's coming to PSVR 2 with Queen songs now. I don't know if you ever played Beat Saber, but we used Omar's set when he lived in Apex. Very fun game, and it's a good workout too. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I actually I still haven't played VR at all yet. Um, so it's one of my blind spots, but that's mostly just because the barrier to entry is pretty steep. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely like Beat Saber looks like a ton of fun. I love rhythm games.
Mhm.
And I definitely think that Beat Saber would be something I'd be super into if I had a VR headset. And yeah, like I'm excited for Beat Saber to come to PSVR 2 because I know it's like such a popular and massive VR game.
Yep.
But I'm just gonna keep on saying it. It I don't know. It's like, man, like you're putting these games in that like probably could have just been shown at a state of play and
Yep.
it would have still gotten a huge amount of hype because it's not like Beat Saber needs to be like heavily marketed.
Nope.
Everyone knows what it is. Everyone loves it. So I don't know. That's just my opinion on that.
Yeah, that's going back into the topic of the show of like, hey, this could have been an email for most of these, not a showcase, and it felt like a long version of a state of play, which we talked about before recording. But we'll get into that in a few Um, but we're getting into the end of the showcase. We have a handful of things left to talk about, and I think that these are where the most interesting part of the showcase happens. Where I think that discussion is invited for not just Drew and I, but for the audience. I want to know what people think about this. I'm going to kick this over to Drewby because this is up his alley. He is my Bungie guy. You know, he's a Halo fan, massive Halo fan,
Yeah.
massive Destiny fan. The next game shown was Bungie's old IP in Marathon that they're reviving. They're bringing it back. So I'm going to kick it over to you because you're my Marathon guy. I'm interested in this. Another game that just got CGI trailer, but it looks very flashy. It looks, it looks very interesting. I'm intrigued. I want gameplay, but I didn't get that. So I'm gonna let you tell them about Marathon.
Yeah, so like Mitch said, Marathon is one of Bungie's classic IPs that they're reviving. I believe it was their IP that they released right before Halo. Um, and I think there's like two or three Marathon games, and I know one of them was remastered on the Xbox 360 because I've actually played it before. Uh, Played it like way back in the day when I was pretty young. But yeah, like it's a really cool franchise. It's a bit niche, not like super popular. Um, but it's got a dope aesthetic, some really interesting lore, and even like a lot of the aesthetic of Halo was like inspired by what they kind of used in Marathon. Like for example, if any of you have played Halo before, there's the security helmet in a lot of the Halo games. It's like the one with the really big goggles, almost looking, and that helmet is an Easter egg of Marathon. Um, so and like there's a plenty of other Easter eggs in like the classic Halo games, um, like kind of giving a nod and wink to Marathon. Um, but yeah, it's one of those games that's it's a sci-fi shooter. It's got a deep and rich lore. And so for this revival that they're doing, so it's going to be set within the classic games universe. So it's not a reboot. It's not a sequel either because this is going to be a PvP centric extraction shooter. Um, which, for those of you who don't know what an extraction shooter is, there's games like Escape from Tarkov where you're thrown into a map. You have to like loot as much as you can and extract within a certain time limit. You'll fight both PvP and PvE enemies in Marathon, just like you do in Tarkov. Um, I really like this genre, honestly. I think it's a ton of fun. Tarkov is a really cool game, but it's not for the faint of heart. And so I think that if like with Bungie being like so like renowned and like perfecting that like FPS genre, I think that it would be great if they kind of picked up on this extraction genre and kind of made it more accessible. Made it to where like the barrier of entry is a lot slimmer. Because like Tarkov, like I said, it's not for the faint of heart. It's a very like difficult game, and not a lot of people are into that. So if we can get like a fast paced, um, instead of like a slow paced extraction shooter, that's a bit more casual while still like having a skill gap for like competitive play. That's got me like really excited. Um, so we've got some details from the Bungie blog and the Vidoc. For some reason, they didn't have any of this information within the show. They just showed the trailer, which is a fantastic trailer. The trailer has pretty incredible visuals. It's very unique in its style. Um, and while it looks a little bit different than classic Marathon, it does have a lot of the qualities and aesthetics from the classic games that are recognizable. Um, So some of the information that we have right now, Marathon is a sci-fi PvP extraction shooter. You play as cybernetic mercenaries known as runners, exploring a lost colony on the mysterious planet of Tau Ceti 4. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. So you basically work in either solo squads or three person crews, and you'll be fighting for survival, for riches, and for fame. So in the Vidoc, one of the things that they talked about was having like a competitive leaderboard. So I'm assuming like some sort of like ranked mode. It seems like they're putting a heavy emphasis on competitive play. Um, but what's really cool about this, there's also going to be like AI enemies like roaming around the maps and everything. Um, so yeah, like it sounds pretty awesome. I know a lot of people are a bit adverse to hearing like a PvP centric game, um, but in my opinion, like I'm okay with this being a PvP centric game. And the reason why I say that is because we've already got Destiny, which is much more focused on PvE and storytelling and everything. And so I'm okay with them doing a separate game that's focused on PvP because of that. Because like as much as I love Destiny 2 right now, the PvE mode, or sorry, the PvP mode is not great. It's very unbalanced. There's a lot of issues with it that I do hope they address in the future. But if not, we've got this separate PvP game that sounds like it could be super awesome. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Um, I mentioned before, like it was just a CG trailer, but the difference between this trailer compared to Fair Games and some of the other CG trailers that we got from first party studios,
Yep.
uh, this is Bungie. We know them. We have expectations of them. We have high expectations from them.
Yep.
So even just like this small tease that we got is enough to get me excited and looking forward to this. And then, yeah, if it's a game that you're interested in, I highly recommend watching the Vidoc. They go really in depth on what the game is and what they're trying to accomplish with the game. So yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty awesome, or at least I'm hoping it will be.
So before the showcase, I didn't. When they kept making, because there's a handful of games in this showcase that they were talking about being extraction shooters, and I was like, "What is an extraction shooter?" And I didn't know until literally like we started recording this podcast. Uh, while Drew was explaining that, I looked up extraction shooters because when he was explaining it like Tarkov, I was like, wait, isn't Hunt Showdown one and like the
Yes.
the
Yep.
DMZ version or like the mode in Call of Duty? I was like, I've totally played games like that and I enjoy those games. So like
Yeah.
that makes me a lot more excited for this. Even Haven's game and Fair Games, I think that they could do something very different with both of those. And when, like you were saying with Bungie, I wanted to jump in for Destiny 2's like the Crucible, which is their PvP thing. When I first got my PS4, I got the Destiny edition, which is the white PS4. So I hopped in Destiny day one. Love Destiny. I've been playing Halo all my life as well from the original Xbox. But their PvP for Destiny hardly ever got it right for me. I think that they've had so many issues and almost almost every time they have a yearly update, the Crucible gets screwed over in some way. Whether that's like a balancing issue or like there's a meta that is just destroying people, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, so I think that Bungie could do a PvP game and nail it because we've seen it with Halo and we've seen it even at times with the Crucible, but they don't have to worry about the story aspect as much because even Destiny 1, a lot of its lore came, you had to look it up online and stuff like that. And a lot of people didn't like that, myself included.
Yeah.
Um, but they don't have to worry about that as much with the PvP game. And I think that if they can just take most of their efforts and put that into the gameplay, we've seen countless examples of Bungie nailing games. So you've sold me on this. I did not watch the Vidoc, but I'm going to as soon as we end the podcast because now I am extremely interested to see what they have to say about that. Did you say it was a 3v3 or is it 5v5?
It's gonna sorry, not 3v3. It's gonna be squads of 3. They didn't say the player limit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's I if I remember correctly, I read like you can play it solo or like a 1 through 3, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it's a lot like Destiny in that aspect then, because Destiny's up to 3 for Crucible, correct?
Uh, Actually, Crucible has different modes. So Trials of Osiris, which is like the super competitive mode, that's 3v3. But then like some of the other modes are 6v6.
Okay, but maybe because I'll be honest, every time, so I get super heavy into Destiny, and then like the first couple DLCs come out, and I'm like, yes, I'm eating this up, and then eventually I fall off because there's like it's just a grind just to grind, and there's too many games for me to play to just be like I want to grind this like like a for a weapon or a piece of armor. I'm like, there's so many other things I could play with my time and watch, and I have too many other hobbies to just grind one game, and that's both my fault and partially the game's fault. But I won't go into that because we're gonna go into the next thing for Destiny, which is that Destiny 2, the final shape. I assume this is gonna be DLC.
Yes. So yeah, I guess I'll just take over here since I'm the Destiny buff.
Please do.
Yeah, so the final shape, they've been talking about it for a few years now. It's gonna be like the quintessential pinnacle, like ending of the saga, like this 10-year saga that we've had in Destiny.
And it's the
Um,
Light and Dark saga, right?
yes, it's the Light and Dark saga. So this is gonna be like the quote unquote final expansion in this saga. Um, and aside from that, we actually have no clue what their plans are for the future of Destiny. Like, we don't know if they're going to make a new Destiny or if they're just going to keep supporting this one and starting a new saga. Um, so we're going to find out all of that information at the Bungie showcase, the Destiny showcase in August. Um, and so, yeah, they're gonna reveal everything about the expansion and their future plans for the game. I'm honestly kind of hoping that instead of making a new game, they just continue supporting Destiny 2. And I could honestly see them switching their focus to next gen only, and like maybe even like updating the engine to kind of support that. Um, we've seen other games do that, like Fortnite, for example. I mean, Fortnite does still have crossplay between last gen and new gen, um, but like last year they went on like a full-on next gen blowout update where it's got like ray tracing, 120 FPS on consoles, um, and like really like future-proofing the game. So I can see them doing that with Destiny real soon. At least that's what my hope is. And then the trailer, like it was just a very short teaser. But they're finally bringing Cade back, and Nathan Fillion is returning to voice act as him. I'm a huge Nathan Fillion fan, so like I'm so freaking stoked for that. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited to see what they end up doing with this expansion. Because Lightfall, gameplay wise, it's awesome. It has a lot of cool new things. But the story was like a huge letdown. It felt half baked.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really felt like there was things missing from it. But I will say the seasons, both the previous season and this new season, are kind of making up for that. They've got some really cool storytelling stuff that they're doing right now, especially this new season that just dropped. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what they've got cooking up for Destiny.
Yeah, and even as a casual Destiny fan, I popped for Cade because I was like, wait, what? That was awesome.
Yeah.
And I do like so early in the year when Lightfall released, I was the sucker of like, I want to get back into Destiny because Destiny's gameplay is butter. It's so smooth. It's so good.
Yep.
I absolutely adore the world they built. I just didn't have the DLC and I didn't want to purchase all of it. And then I was reading online of like, yeah, like playing the content is fine to get the story, but they're like, you're going to be under leveled still and you're going to be getting bad armor and stuff. And I'm like, I don't really care that much, but like the back part of my brain's like, don't play the old content when the new content's out. And then at the same time, the other side of my brain's like, yeah, but you need the story. And so I got overwhelmed and I didn't do it. But I still want to. Whether I do that or not is a whole other story. But speaking of other stories, Concord, which is a new PvP game from Firewalk Studios. It is slated for 2024 for PS5 and PC, and it's another game that got a windowed release date with absolutely no gameplay. This one doesn't even have like concept art really with it. It's like a really short teaser. It's sci-fi, I think. If I remember, it's like space-ish,
Yes.
which is you can't get more vague than space. There's nothing more unfulfilling than just being like it's space because it's space. So
Yeah, it like the trailer's literally just a 50-second trailer of the interior of a spaceship, giving absolutely no teases as what it could be. Where um the Haven's game and Bungie's game, like you get a little sense of what it could be. But this
yeah,
one was like nothing. And this one, out of those three multiplayer games that they showed, this one has a window. So like this one we know is like coming out soon. So,
and we got
so
the
I was
least
just,
amount on it.
yeah, like I'm just like that that doesn't make any sense.
It's head
Um
scratching and mind boggling, and it makes absolutely no sense. I want to see what this game is, and
yeah.
uh, we'll talk about this more in a second because we're rounding out the last little bit of news that came out of this. There was a Gran Turismo movie trailer. Cool. Uh, it's a movie trailer. Did not expect that here. Probably shouldn't have been here. It was here. But the next two, there's three little, well, not little, three announcements left. Two of the three are hardware related. Project Q finally announced. This has been rumored for, I don't know, months to years maybe. It's an 8-inch LCD remote screen with a, so if you're familiar with like the backbone where like it's an adjustable it's got it for Xbox and PlayStation, but it's basically your controller. If it was ripped in half, you put your phone in there and you can play remotely. This is that, but not the backbone. It's Sony official. So it is the DualSense itself. It's going to have all the features, the bells and whistles that comes with the DualSense. Um, no price, and I think that it's slated for later this year. Probably going to be too much money. But
Yeah.
the kicker here is that it only works on Wi-Fi, where the same Wi-Fi of which your PlayStation's connected to. The game has to be installed on your PlayStation 5. Um, this is a niche thing within a niche market that is cloud gaming at the moment. The United States, most of the world doesn't have the infrastructure to support cloud gaming right now. We're in the early stages. It's the same thing as VR. They're both very niche. They're both the future, but we're just not there yet.
Yeah.
Um, and this is even more niche in the fact that you have to be on your Wi-Fi. You have to have the game installed. Those don't seem like big things, but who is this for? I don't know. I want it just to play with it. I think it's cool. I mean, 8 inches is bigger than my phone. This thing is specifically made for that. Uh, I think it's interesting. It's probably going to be too much money, so I'll be watching YouTube tutorials, or maybe not tutorials, but you know what I mean, just like YouTube footage of this. Because I could see myself do it like I do the Switch, like with me and my girlfriend when she wants to watch a show or something. I could throw something on this and play it, but I also have another television in my residence, so I don't necessarily need that. I don't know. I don't know. Does this do anything for you?
Yeah, I mean, not really. I haven't tried remote play on PlayStation at all. I don't even
I
know
haven't
if
either.
I don't think I've tried it for Xbox either. I just think that like streaming games, like if you got the internet power to do it, go right ahead and try it out. But um, I don't know. It's just it's not for me. If I'm playing a console game, I want to be sitting in my chair with my controller in hand, playing on the TV. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Agreed.
The Switch is a little bit different. Um, and like, and this is why the Switch is so great is because you can play those games anywhere. You
Yep.
don't have to be playing connected to the Wi-Fi that your PS5 is connected to, or your
Yep.
Switch is connected to, right? So, um, yeah, like I don't know, it's extremely niche, and I'm really worried that it's gonna be like stupid expensive. Because if you're gonna make something niche like that, I don't think it should have a massive price tag attached to it. So that's my only worry with it.
Yeah, and it's Sony, so it's going to be expensive. I mean, their
Exactly.
controllers are $75. I can't see this thing being less than $200.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a fair price. I don't know. Uh, it's not inherently for me, but I am so morbidly curious that I might buy the bullet if I find some funds later, whenever in the life cycle of this thing. Um, but yeah, I think it's interesting. And another tidbit to that is that streaming is always going to be inferior to physical and even downloaded things. Uh, there's always going to be a latency no matter what you do with streaming.
Yeah.
And me personally, I want the best version of the game that I possibly can play. That goes for music, for audio purposes, visual purposes. I want all the bells and whistles, the Dolby Vision, the Dolby Atmos. I want the best of the best, and streaming will never be that for me.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about physical media here in a minute, but that kind of touches on that. We're both physical guys, uh, in terms of media. But
Nice save.
thank you very much. I had to clarify myself. You know what I mean? Uh, and speaking of physical things, the second to last announcement was that PlayStation are making earbuds, not over the head headphones, earbuds, and this is exciting because it can pair to your phone via Bluetooth, as well as obviously the PlayStation 5. It's coming with all the bells and whistles. Very exciting stuff because I am an earbud person.
Yeah.
Um,
I was gonna say real quick, it's also gonna be implementing the 3D audio technology that they've been doing
yes.
on a lot of their first party headsets. So that's actually really exciting.
Hmm.
I've actually gotten used to like wearing more earbuds lately just because I have the AirPods now.
Yep.
And I love them. And I think that I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I love my Astro headset, but it would be nice to have just a pair of like earbuds to not have to like wear that like bulky headset all the time and still like have great audio. So out of like the two hardware announcements, this one like really excites me, and I'm all about having like the best quality audio. Um, when it comes to gaming or listening to music. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one actually.
Yeah, agreed. I have Astro A50s, and if anyone isn't unfamiliar, those are the top of the line Astros of like the wireless headset. Because I don't like cords. It's the same reason I have AirPod Pros. I don't like cords anymore. We're in 2023. We don't need cords. But I had to buy a secondary base because you can use it for PC, PlayStation, but if you want to use an Xbox, you need a secondary base for that. So I bought one of those, and that was like $100. So like, I've spent a lot of money in the Astro realm and Astro ecosystem, but honestly, I could see myself leaving um, my Astros at the desk and using them for PC and my Xbox, and then when I want to play on the big screen with my PlayStation, using the earbuds. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the price point. I don't think it's going to be super expensive because it's earbuds versus over the head. I think over the head generally costs more. Um, as we see in majority of the cases. The AirPod Maxes or whatever, like $500 compared to like the 200 for the AirPod Pros. So we'll see. And speaking of we'll see, we're gonna have to wait even longer to find out about our last story when it comes to the PlayStation 2023 showcase. Spider-Man 2. The only first party game that we get shown at this entire hour plus event. It's shambolic. From a PlayStation perspective, the gameplay in Spider-Man itself is not. It looks absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But they showed us 12 minutes of gameplay. Maybe not gameplay, of in footage, cinematics, and gameplay. Trailer opens up. We're in some kind of forest. There's a guy that we think is Craven. Turns out it's not Craven. Craven kills fake Craven. There's a little thing says, "Hey, why don't you go hunt something real or something?" I don't know. It's New York. 6 months later, we're in New York City. We see Peter in the symbiote suit. The gameplay there looks absolutely incredible. I love that we're in a neighborhood. To me, that is awesome because it's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I know that's lame and cliche. I like Spider-Man in New York. That's one of the problems I have with the MCU Spider-Man. We're all over the place. I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but we're not in New York, so boo. Whatever, that's a side tangent. Back to Spider-Man 2. Gameplay looks great. We see the symbiote suit, and then there's a little dialogue thing happens. Peter's like, "Hey, I can't get there." So what do? You press square, and almost instantly, we switch to Miles Morales in the city. You play as Miles. So it's confirmed that you play as both. I think we already knew that, but even if not, it's reconfirmed. You have a wingsuit. I don't know if that's just for Miles. Do you know if that's just for Miles?
Um, I'm not sure. I can't imagine that they would only do it for Miles. I feel like that would be like such a like I don't know. I feel like that would be really annoying. So I could see Peter having it as well.
Well, the only reason I think that it could be different is because like they want to make each character feel unique, and they could use the symbiote suit to do interesting things there.
Yeah,
Even if it has like the wings or whatever, it's not actual wings. Think of like a flying squirrel.
yeah,
In terms of the suit that we're talking about here. Um, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. We get some gameplay, we get some action, we see some fighting for both Peter and Miles. Very good stuff. Both have unique play styles. Both are very different from the predecessor games, and it's cool to see them both in this Spider-Man. Lizard is also a villain in this one. It seems like Craven's kind of going after Lizard, and they're trying to stop that for some reason. I would assume. I don't necessarily know, but that's the takeaway I got from that trailer. But yeah, the ray tracing looks great. Everything about it looks great. But we get to the end of the trailer, and it says fall 2023 again. And for me personally, we're a week away from June. Fall technically starts in September, so
yeah,
we're 3 to 4 months away from this game. And the we talked about this in the first episode of the podcast. But the voice actor for Venom said that it would be releasing at the end of September, correct?
yeah. I believe so.
So if it's that close, we're like 4 months away. Why are they not telling us the date?
Yeah. That's got me a little bit worried. That the game is gonna get delayed. Honestly, because if they were confident in releasing this game in the fall, I feel like they would have given us a release date.
Yeah,
I,
100%. And I think that everyone, including Drew and I, trust Insomniac. We trust Sony, but That
Yeah.
doesn't that this showcase did not instill confidence in any way. Um, we trust them, but because they've shown to us that they're not going to lead us wrong. But I don't know. This showcase was. We're gonna rate it after this, but I just want to say this. Not showing us a date tells me that they're not confident and that they can ship this game um, by the date that they originally thought they were. Um, and that maybe the insiders, or maybe not insiders, but the people that worked on the game thought, or maybe no, I'm not even gonna say that because I don't think that's true whatsoever. Yeah, I think it shows a lack of confidence in Sony's and maybe even Insomniac's part of when this game will be ready to play.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so Drew and I were talking during the showcase, and Drew originally was lower on it than me, but I want to go to you first. What out of a 5? Do you want to do like the letterbox rating of half stars or no?
It doesn't matter to me. I don't know. What do you think?
Um, I think we can do whatever we want, but I'm gonna what would you give this showcase?
Yeah, so originally, mine wasn't gonna be as low as it is now, but the more I think about it, um, I think honestly mine's gonna be a 2 out of 5.
Yep.
I think originally I was probably more like 2.5 or 3, but the more I think about it, I'm like, nah, this was a huge disappointment and a huge letdown. Um, and while like I here's the thing, like I do think that it wasn't a terrible showcase. Um, the way everything was presented for the most part was really well, and like I felt like there was a pretty solid pacing to the show. I liked how we got a few trailers. There's a little bit of Jim Ryan talking, some more trailers. He pops back in for a little bit, and then trailers and gameplay for Spider-Man. So
Yep.
I liked how it was structured and paced, but I didn't like the games that were there, honestly. Like there just wasn't enough there to get me hyped and excited for whatever's next for PlayStation. Um a huge amount of the games were all third party or multi-platform, and even as far as we know, all of the multiplayer games that were announced are going to be not only on PS5 but also on PC. And then Marathon, Bungie has already said that all of their games, even though there's PlayStation Studio now, they're all going to be multi-platform. They're going to be on PC and Xbox, and they already confirmed that for Marathon. So I don't know. It was just an incredibly disappointing showcase to me, and I don't think that our hype meters and expectation levels before we went in were too high. Everyone was expecting a lot from this showcase because it's been years, and so I'm gonna be a little bit harsher on it because I was really hyped for this showcase, and I mentioned it in our last episode, but PlayStation was in this perfect position to drop an absolute banger showcase and just go straight in for the kill on Xbox. Because Xbox just had Redfall come out, and it was a massive flop, both critically and in terms of sales and everything. So yeah, like PlayStation was just in this perfect position to release probably like one of their best showcases ever. And that's not what we got. So it's a 2 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. I think we've already talked about it a lot in the podcast of, our expectations were high, but I don't think they were unreasonably high. And I think that again, you hit the nail on the head. Um, the fact that most of the things that were shown today from first party were CG and not gameplay leads me to believe that I don't know anything more than I did when I entered this whole ordeal. Um,
Yeah.
I was originally a 3 out of 5 until I got to the end and Spider-Man didn't have the release date. And I said to myself, I said, "Hey, this can't happen at a showcase. You can't come in here and be like, we're gonna have the answers. Even to just Spider-Man, you have to tell us when it's coming. Fall isn't enough.
Yeah.
Um, details shouldn't come out on a blog post after your showcase. Your showcase should be, this is the game, this is when it's coming out, here's what it looks like.
Yep.
We didn't get that for majority of the games here. That's the biggest problem for me. And the second biggest problem is that almost every single game shown, at least half, maybe even a little bit more than half, is coming to other hardware or other platforms. Um, this is gonna sound like entitlement, but just stick with me. Um, I own PS5, I have a Series X, I have a beefy PC, I have a Switch. I'm agnostic in the terms of I will meet you wherever you go and play the game where it's best available. But at the same time, as dumb as the wars are, I want a reason to be like, hey, I'm getting off work today. I'm getting out of school today. I want to go home, sit down with my DualSense on my PS5 and play a game that I can only play on my PS5. Maybe that's just me and how I was growing up with like Halo, Uncharted. That's just the way that I like it. And Sony has, and Jim Ryan specifically, keeps contradicting himself in terms of, hey, your PlayStation games are coming to PC, but it's going to be at least 2 years, 3 years after, you know. But when you're announcing your live service games in the way that you announce them and show them, and then it's like it's coming to PS5 and PC. My PC is better hardware and specs wise than my PlayStation 5. Why am I bothering? You're not showing me the first party stuff. So why do people need a PS5 if they can play it on PC? And it's the same thing that I have with Xbox. It's like I don't need an Xbox at this point to play Xbox games. That's just for me. I like sitting on the couch and gaming. That's one of the ways that I unwind from the real world, and I enjoy doing that, right?
Yeah, same here.
But I'm beginning to not need an Xbox, and that's why I favor PlayStation, because I need a PlayStation to play the games that I love, right? That's slowly dwindling down, and I don't like it. And I might be in the minority there, and I might be on a soapbox of entitlement, and I'm like, even if I am, I'm not sorry, because I spent $500 on a PlayStation 5. So I don't know. This showcase was a letdown. Originally, I had it a 3 because I think that the format, I think the pacing, I think the way that it was presented, I think the third party showings were great. I liked the first party announcements, but I needed gameplay to be sold on those. If there's the Concord is a game coming out next year. I don't know anything about it other than it's space and that it's a PvP thing, but that was learned from a blog post, which again is a huge problem. Yeah, they didn't sell me a game. I was already sold on Spider-Man. I didn't even need to see the 12 minutes of gameplay or cinematics or anything. Give me the date that I know that I can do it. Open up pre-orders for the people that want to pre-order that can't, because some people can't afford a certain amount of games a year, right?
Yeah.
So they can start saving up now to do it. And I give that fall, even though it's vague, it is a window of like, save your money up for this $70, but it's like, when is it coming? I don't know. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna get off my soapbox. Sony really let me down, and not even just from like my predictions, because I understood, we talked about this, like we did swing for the fences, but at the same time, it wasn't super unrealistic, aside from our unrealistic picks, to want these things. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5 as well. I was originally a 3, but the more I sit with it, the more I just can't stand it. The more that I hope that Xbox comes out in what, 2 weeks? I think
Yeah, 2 weeks. Yep.
2 weeks from Sunday. I hope they come out and just wipe the floor like Sony did them last generation.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait and see. So that's our thoughts in the showcase. So we're gonna get into the topic of the show, which is PlayStation's focus on live service and multiplayer centric commitment going to benefit them, or will it stain their goodwill in terms of single player experiences? What do you think?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm a huge, okay, I guess I'll say it like this. I'm a huge multiplayer gamer. And I play quite a few like live service games. But I think the lack of single player stuff at this showcase was like really telling of like the future of Sony and like kind of what they've said before. And like don't get me wrong, I think it's great that they're getting into multiplayer and I want to see multiplayer and live service type games from PlayStation. And the way that they've talked about live service, I kind of like what they've said about it. They're like, not all games are going to be the same. They're not all going to be like massive multiplayer games with like battle passes and this, that, and the other. Because live service is a very uh, broad term, I guess you could say. Um, but I don't know. It's got me a little worried that they're going a little bit too heavy on live service games and maybe forgetting what makes them great. And at least that's just what I took away from the showcase. And I could be completely wrong. Like they could be having. I mean, we know they have a lot of single player games in the works. Um, but I just hope that there's a nice balance between the two.
Right. And our friend James, the folklore Jimmy Jam, he wrote in to us just like you can. So we're gonna every week we're gonna have questions that you guys can submit to either Drew and I via social media about things that you want either discussed or the central theme. And James was basically just saying, do you think the increased emphasis on the multiplayer is a good idea in the long run, or should they just stuck with the memes and just lived out the multiplayer? I can't remember where I saw this, Drew, and I apologize for that, but I did um I did read that 60% of the production budget by 2026 is going to multiplayer games and live service games. 60% of the budget, that is three-fifths of their budget, is going into multiplayer games and
Yeah.
live service games. This is the problem, and this is where I'm gonna get back on my soapbox. The reason that Sony is in the position that they were is because of the PlayStation 4 and the goodwill they've given us with their single player games. And I know that they get shit on a lot because of the third person over the shoulder camera action games, whether that be Uncharted, Horizon, Days Gone, God of War, what it is. These games are selling millions and millions and millions. People are clamoring for spin-offs, for sequels to everything that they can get their hands on. Switching that up is going to not only hurt them financially but hurt their reputation. And I this is why we got three multiplayer games announced yesterday from just their first party. We know nothing about them. um Almost every multiplayer game that isn't from one of the big hitters of EA, Ubisoft, um uh shoot, even Bungie now, you're you're not getting the mind share of the multiplayer space unless you do something specific. Fortnite has it continues to evolve on itself, and it's super impressive because I know Fortnite gets a lot of slack, but ever since they put the no build mode in, a lot of the fans came back, including myself. Um, and if you're not Fortnite, if you're not Apex from EA, if you're not Rainbow Six from Ubisoft, how are you going to keep yourself in that conversation? I'm not sure that you can. And doing it so often within your own studio, it feels like you're going to cannibalize not only the market but yourself. Um, Fair games, it's probably going to cost a lot of money. Are people going to gravitate toward that more than marathon? And even if they don't do it between those two, you still have the game from Firewalk, Concord. Not to mention, The Last of Us has a multiplayer game coming out. Horizon has a multiplayer game coming out. Why are you creating and putting so much effort into multiplayer things that ultimately could lead to the end of some of these studios? If Concord game comes out and you know it doesn't do well, that is jobs, that is money gone. Years of work gone. And I'm not saying just to, just stick to single player games. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. I just think
Yeah.
that you're throwing so much at the wall and hoping that all of it sticks when I can almost guarantee that only like a third of it does. And I think that Marathon will, because it has Bungie. Um, I I I I don't want to be mean, and I don't want to like shit on a studio, but from what I see from Fair Games, I don't know how well that game is going to be received.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know how they're going to make their money back, and that's both heartbreaking and infuriating that Sony is chasing a trend that could quickly die. Uh, I think that battle royales have already started to see the decline of those.
Yeah.
I don't think they're dead, but obviously extraction games are the next battle royale, right? And you're putting all of your eggs into that basket, and once that basket goes, there goes 2 or 3 of your games.
Yeah.
Um, so I do think that I do think it's a mistake. I think that obviously Sony has a lot of in-house studios that could do a lot of different things, and I know that you can only create so many IPs, and I know that you can only take so many single player games, but I don't think that people are clamoring for multiplayer in the way that they're clamoring for single player games right now. I believe it was EA a couple years ago that was like, people don't want single player games, and then Twitter were just ignited on them, and we're like, no, we want single player games. We don't want your multiplayer BS. Like, this is what we want. We're telling you what we want. Just listen to us. And so yeah, I'll get off the soapbox now. I think that there's a lot of things that Sony didn't show, and I know that they wanted this to be the multiplayer thing, but without having Horizon there, without having, which is Horizon's probably further off than Naughty Dog's The Last of Us multiplayer game. But if you're trying to sell us on live service multiplayer, you have to show us those games. You can't do it via a CG trailer. That's not how multiplayer works. For single player, yeah, you can show us a story, right? Even for like The Last of Us multiplayer, because it's going to be big, it's going to have its own story. You could show us a cinematic of like, hey, these are the people you play as. If it's not created characters, if it's somebody you play as, which actually I don't think it probably will be. Now that I say that out loud, but they did say they're telling a story. Show us a vertical slice of that story, right? And where is that game? First and foremost, where in the world is Naughty Dog? Why is their
Um,
multiplayer game not there?
I will tell you right now because some news just broke out about it.
Okay, perfect. Tell me.
Yeah. So, there's a few things first. I'm just gonna go ahead and read off the Naughty Dog like press release that they just put out. You know, like how all the big game developers they put like, hey, we apologize for this, that, blah blah blah. Like it looks like every other game developer who does it. So this is what they just posted as of almost an hour ago now. The Last of Us fans, we know that many of you have been looking forward to hearing more about our Last of Us multiplayer game. We're incredibly proud of the job our studio has done thus far, but as development has continued, we've realized what is best for the game is to give it more time. Our team will continue to work on the project as well as other games in development, including a brand new single player experience. We look forward to sharing more soon. We're grateful to our fantastic community for your support. Thank you for your passion for our games. It continues to drive us. Um, and since that has come out, as of 22 minutes ago, Jason Schreier just posted a huge article on Bloomberg. Obviously, like I don't pay for Bloomberg, so I can't read the full article. But Jeff Grubb replied to the tweet, um, and he was saying that all he's heard about this game is that it looks like a studio's first live service game, and Naughty Dog wanted to do things their own way, which isn't boding well for factions. And then Jason Schreier, in his headline, he said that Naughty Dog has significantly scaled down the team on its Last of Us multiplayer project. Um, so the game has been indefinitely delayed, it looks like, and it seems like they're shifting their focus a little bit. So that's really disappointing.
Yeah, not only is that disappointing, that's almost that it both breaks my heart for the studio, but also breaks the heart of not only myself, but like so I'm I love multiplayer games. I love playing multiplayer games with my friends. I was very much looking forward to this because I was rewatching the Summer Game Fest this morning. Um, just because it's that season. I want to get excited. It's the same thing I do for the Super Bowl. I always watch either the Carolina Panthers Super Bowl where they lost to break my heart again because I'm a masochist, or I watched the last year's Super Bowl, just to get excitement because it's
Yeah.
just hype. I love hype. Uh, but yeah, this is terrible. Not only from their perspective, but again from Sony's perspective. And this is Naughty Dog. This is PlayStation's marquee studio
Yeah.
facing setbacks, and
Not
the
to mention this was the first live service like multiplayer game that's been announced by Sony as well.
agreed. And it says that weaknesses were found in the game even as the HBO series becomes a hit. What were the weaknesses found in the game? Why are we getting this news a day or two after the showcase? Why wasn't this out in front of the showcase to be like, hey, the Last of Us multiplayer game will not be there because we've run into a wall, right?
Yeah.
We have to reassess where we are, and we'll show you it when it's ready. And fans would have been like, hey, okay, thanks for acknowledging that.
Yeah, there should have been expectations set. I'd say even before the show. Um, I know that I think it was like in this past week sometime. Uh, Ubisoft's CEO came out and said that the Prince of Persia remake will not be at their showcase, and he clearly laid out why. They're basically rebuilding it from the ground up, and it's going to take more time. They set the expectations weeks before the upcoming Ubisoft showcase. Um, so yeah, like this is honestly insane that Naughty Dog and Sony didn't let us know about this before the showcase. Because honestly, like if I would have known this beforehand, I probably would be maybe a little less harsh about their showcase right now. So
Yeah, agreed. And I don't want to keep using sports analogies because I know this is a video game podcast, and those don't always go hand in hand. But I'm a huge sports guy, so I'm going to anyway. Um, one of my teams is the Boston Celtics, and last night the commentators were commentating about this as well. But when you're fouled on a shot, right? They're calling fouls late, like they blow their whistles to obviously indict there's a foul. But they're doing it to see if the shot goes in first before they're blowing the whistle nowadays in the playoffs, and it's driving me insane. So the foul happens before or during the shot, right? You don't wait until after the shot either goes in or misses to call the foul. And I think it's a good analogy for this because they waited to see how reception was to this showcase, right? And then they blew the whistle and were like, hey, the reason it wasn't there is because we're facing setbacks. And it's like, yeah, totally. But you could have easily got out ahead of this and we're like, hey, it's not going to be there. We need more time. Give us a little more time. And everyone would have been like, yes, Naughty Dog is not, they're prone to delaying their games. The Last of Us Part 2 got delayed a couple times. Um, I even think the original Last of Us got delayed, but I could be mistaken on that because it's been a decade now and I can't quite remember that far back. But um, yeah, you don't wait until after to do that, right?
yeah, yeah, this
Uh,
that's honestly really embarrassing. Like
I agree.
if they couldn't embarrass if they couldn't embarrass themselves enough, they're like, wait a second, we've got more.
It, it really does feel like they're one upping each other in terms of how annoying they can be to their fan base right now.
Yeah,
And I just want to touch on this because Gollum, the Lord of the Rings game Gollum, um, is getting near released or it's releasing soon or tomorrow. I don't know when it's coming out. I frankly don't care. It looks like utter garbage, and I don't like being mean to people in the industry, but like I don't know what they're thinking, and this was never a good idea, and I don't know how this got out of the concepts page or whatever concept stage is what I'm trying to say. But in 2023, this is where we are in the gaming industry. We are getting games that are either being delayed, which is fine, delay your game, but also get out in front of it when it's expected somewhere and you say it's going to be somewhere. They didn't say this is going to be there, but last year at Summer Games Fest, Druckmann said we'll hear a lot more in 2023. This is not the way that anyone wanted to hear this. But games are coming out broken, and it's better to delay them than not. We saw that with Redfall just a month at the beginning of this month, actually. But big games can be delayed, and that's fine. But you have to be able to tell us that. Infinite got ahead of it, and it got flack for delaying it from a launch title to a little over a year later. Good games are allowed to get delayed. Any game's allowed to get delayed, but a delay can make a bad game good if you get more time on it, right? And I don't know. I'm glad you found that, because I was going to be a lot more harsh than I already was, I feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just where we were. And so we went over the showcase, right? We said everything that was going to be there. But now I'm going to read you a list of things that weren't there, because Sony's in an interesting position of like, they have so much they can show. It's just a matter of when they're going to show it. And this is a list of games that we either thought were going to be there, could have been there, and they just weren't there. So here we go. The Last of Us Factions. We just got the breaking news here on the Casket Minds podcast that The Last of Us multiplayer is indefinitely delayed. Good, but a little late on that communication. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth wasn't there. It's slated for winter. Do we ever see that game again? I don't know. Death Stranding 2. Death Stranding has been shown a lot at the Sony thing because Kojima and Sony are, Death Stranding 1 came out on PlayStation first.
Yeah.
Rise of the Ronin from Team Ninja. I thought that was one of my locks. I thought, hey, we're gonna see that here. It was slated for 2024. Who knows when that's coming? Silent Hill 2. That's a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Nowhere to be seen. Deviation Games new IP, not there. London Studios is working on a new multiplayer game. That's not there. Marvel's Wolverine, not there. Insomniac was there to sell us Spider-Man 2, but they didn't give us a date, so no Wolverine. Hopefully that's still on pace for next year, but we'll see. Ben Studios new IP, not there.
Real quick about Ben Studio, they also put out a press release, I think it was yesterday, and it was another one of those things. We know you're excited, blah, 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 but we're not quite ready yet, and we're making good progress. Which, cool. Let us know before the showcase.
Yes. Because it's the thing. It's like you're blowing the whistle after the foul. You've already committed the foul of like, if you get out in front of it and say, hey, we're not going to be there, but our amazing partners are going to be there. If everyone did that, we would have more realistic expectations of what you are selling us versus us expecting it. We haven't seen anything from Ben in 4 years, so I don't think it's unreasonable to think that, Days Gone was pretty much, the sequel was canned. One of the people that worked on Days Gone said that if Days Gone 2 had got greenlit, it would have came out last month. And it's like, cool, yeah. So your next game should be, hypothetically, a year out from release. What are you doing? Just give us a name, give us something, give us that Ben logo, because Ben is a studio once again that we trust to make at least a decent game.
Yeah.
Get us a little bit excited, man. Show us your hand a little bit.
Even just concept art,
It doesn't take much. The Last of Us Factions, or whatever the multiplayer game is, they showed a concept art last year and everyone lost their minds. They're like, yes, a new game. Yes, cool. That's all it takes. Whatever. Lost Soul aside, Stellar Blade, Santa Monica Studios new IP. Presumably Cory Barlog's new game wasn't there. I don't know how to say that name, and I don't know what that is, so I'm just gonna skip over that anyway. Little Devil Inside, that's a sweet little indie game that's been lost in translation. It's supposed to come out like 2 years ago at this point, and it's just MIA. Sucker Punch wasn't there. They could have announced Ghost of Tsushima's sequel. Nope. Guerrilla Games wasn't there in any facet. They are reportedly working on a Horizon multiplayer game. Not there. And this next one really surprises me. Fire Sprite is making the next Twisted Metal, and I know that they took the. There was a early in the PS5 days. There was like a Demolition. I think it was called Demolition All Stars, maybe. But
Yeah,
it was like a destruction car game, and I'm pretty sure that was like a test to see like Twisted Metal's interest, right?
Yeah.
The game was free. It was like the PS Plus game of the month or whatever, and no one liked it, so they took the team off of it and gave it to Fire Sprite. Twisted Metal has a show coming out soon.
Yeah, it's like, man, you've got that show coming out. Why don't you ride off the high of that announcement and give us literally just a logo of a new Twisted Metal game? Like that would hype people up.
Agreed. And since I'm in my feelings and annoyed at the moment, I'm gonna dig in a little bit farther. Twisted Metal doesn't look good. The show doesn't look good. So show us the game that Twisted Metal can be a good show, but they didn't get the right people to make the good show, so it's not going to happen. Is your game going to be good? I don't know, because you won't show it to me. Anyways, we're gonna move on because Sony's just annoying me at this point. Pragmata wasn't shown. Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't shown. Eternights, I don't know what that is. That was at Summer Game Fest last year, but
yeah, that was like one of the anime style games, I think.
Whatever, you know what I mean? Honkai Star Rail, I don't know what that is. I'm reading from a list from Next Gen Player on Twitter, and as much as there's almost as many things not shown as there was shown during the entire showcase. So, goodbye Volcano High. Bluepoint wasn't there in any capacity, and neither was Team Asobi, which is the people that make I'm blanking on his little name, the little white PlayStation dude.
Astrobot.
Yes, thank you very much, Astrobot. At least 25 first-party games and console exclusives missing from the PlayStation Showcase, and almost half, if not a little bit more, of the games shown at the showcase are coming to Xbox, PC, or another platform, including the PS4, which at this point in the generation, we're 2.5 years into the PS5. It's time to cut off the PS4. I understand there's over 100 million units. It's time. The chip shortage is over. You can go into a store and buy a PS5. Make people buy PS5s.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. It's time to start diving into the new gen. It's been years now. Like, these developers need to start utilizing this new technology, especially given that like we have these SSDs now that are supposed to help the developers make the games run better and make their development process a lot smoother. So yeah, it is time for last gen to start being sunsetted a little bit, in terms of like new game releases.
Agreed. It's just time. Let's I want to be sold on the PlayStation 5, even though I've already been sold on one.
Yeah.
This showcase didn't do it. There's a lot of speculation that there might be another showcase later in the year. There was a PS5 reveal in June of 2020, and then in September 2020 they did a very big showcase for games. Let's hope that happens again, because I think that Sony will have a good 2024. I just don't think that we were sold that here. Concord's coming next year. A bunch of like the third party stuff's coming next year. It's just we're missing that first party, and that's what I think most fans wanted to see. So yeah, that wraps up the predictions and the roundup, our thoughts on the PlayStation Showcase itself. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move into the biggest news since the PlayStation Showcase and the first episode. So the first piece of news I have written down is that we did not get a Final Fantasy 16 demo that was heavily rumored to happen right after the showcase. It is confirmed that we are getting a Final Fantasy 16 demo. and that the progress will carry over into the full game. But where is that? We have no idea. They did not say anything about it. They haven't come out yet and said anything about it. So maybe it's a week or so before. Maybe next week we see that.
Yeah,
I think it's a 2 hour demo, so I would like a little bit of time to dabble with it before the game comes out.
exactly.
Um, but
And man, like it would have been so freaking perfect to release it this week because in like next week, both Street Fighter 6 and Diablo 4 come out. So it's
yeah,
like, man, like what are they doing?
it's important to note that it's an early access of Diablo, but a lot of people have that. And
Yeah,
even if not, Street Fighter's out next week. You
exactly.
know, Tears of the Kingdom's out right now, but like there's no time. Right now you only have to fight Tears of the Kingdom for your space, right?
Exactly.
You're gonna get you can get people off that for an hour or two, but once Street Fighter and Diablo come out, no chance. You have no chance.
Yep.
Um, it is what it is. Excuse me. Early in the show, Drew and I talked about us being physical media lovers, and this comes from AlanWake.com itself. So this is from Remedy. There's no physical edition of Alan Wake 2. I like what they did because there isn't one. What they did was they made the game cheaper. So the game on consoles and whatnot, or it's going to be $60. On PC, it's 50. And they're using the excuse, if you want to call it that, that um, the game's cheaper because they don't have to print on physical. And I think a lot of developers might follow suit. I don't like that. The only caveat that I'll add to that is that a lot of physical games nowadays are being downloaded anyways. It's being installed to your hard drive and it's reading off your hard drive versus the disc when it comes to gaming.
Yeah,
Um, but even then, I like having that box on the shelf with a disc in it that works.
for sure.
But I think that we're in a losing battle. We're in an uphill battle right now of physical media just dying out. And I think that this is a big step in the direction of killing off physical media because I do think a lot of third party publishers might do the same.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Um,
I don't like that, but it is what it is.
yeah.
So yeah, that's you got anything to say about Alan Wake 2?
Um, yeah, it's a shame that we're not getting physical release. I did see that THQ Nordic actually like tweeted out at Remedy Games and they offered to uh make a physical release for the game if they were willing to. So I hope like that honestly comes into fruition. Even if it's just a limited release, that would be much better than where they're at right now. But speaking of Alan Wake 2, at the Summer Game Festival next week, we're gonna be getting I think it was like an 8 or 6 minute demo of raw gameplay footage from the game. So that's gonna be super awesome. And then also at the Summer Game Fest, we're gonna be getting an 8 minute Mortal Kombat 1 gameplay demo as well.
Yep. I didn't see the number for the Alan Wake thing, but that's about what I guessed. I'd seen that they were going to be there for raw, actual gameplay, which is great. I want to see what that game looks like.
Yeah,
Same with Mortal Kombat. I want to see what that game plays like because it's the first iteration on next gen hardware for only next gen hardware, so that's very exciting. Um, yeah, I always welcome gameplay, and Summer Game Fest is the perfect place to do it because PlayStation normally and Xbox like showing their first party stuff there. Same with Ubisoft and EA, but there is a quick thing to note. EA does not have anything planned like an EA Play or anything, so we could see something EA related there. That would be welcoming, either via like Dragon Age or maybe something Star Wars related. Maybe who knows?
yeah,
But that's the place to do it. Is Summer Game Fest. Yeah. So, like I said early in the showcase, The Lord of the Rings Gollum is coming out very soon. Or maybe it came out yesterday. I'm not really I think it might have come out today. I think reviews came out yesterday.
I think you're right.
Um, according to OpenCritic, it has a 40%. PC Gamer gave it a 64 out of 100. That seems to be the highest. Critics recommend it 4%. that is abysmal. If you've seen anything about this game, you would understand. Um, there's also news that they are making a second Lord of the Rings game. I'm interested to see if they get pulled from that. We can only hope that they get pulled from that. And again, I don't want to shit on a developer because they have done nothing wrong to us, but at the same time, it's like this game has been announced for years. You knew what this game was for years. At some point in the development, somebody had, because every game, like every big game at least, gets play tested. They like from either like like in-house thing or like a third party like testing. Somebody knew that this game was going to be terrible, and they continued to put money and time and people's lives into it, and it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking for the people that worked on it, but uh, they thought that Lord of the Rings could do it. You know, the name in Gollum could do it. They couldn't do it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
It's also a little worrisome about Embracer Group because that's the huge company that bought out the rights to Lord of the Rings, not just for the
Mm-hmm.
games but for the movie rights as well. Um, and so it's a little worrisome because their first game that they're releasing is not only like a disappointing game, but it's just an outright terrible game. And so it's putting a really bad taste in everyone's mouth for first impressions. Um, and then also, just today, we got some news that a grant was filed for a new Lord of the Rings game to be developed by the same Gollum dev team, or the same studio, I should say. So that's like, that's a little interesting. You just got insanely poor reception, and I'm assuming probably are gonna get poor sales as well. Um, and you're already filing to make a new game by the same team. So that's I don't know.
Insanity is what I would call it, but yeah, that's it sucks for Lord of the Rings because I hold Lord of the Rings to a higher standard than I hold most things. Um,
Yeah,
and it's a shame that I mean the Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War games from WB were great. Um, a Gollum game could be cool, but I just don't. This wasn't it, and they found out the hard way. Um, so yeah, moving on to a little bit more exciting news. John Wick is getting a AAA game, and it's in the works. This is coming from Lion Gate's a Lion Gate executive, I believe.
yeah. I think it was like the chair, one of the chairmans or something like that.
So that's cool news. I think that world. I love that world. I love the movies. I'm excited for the Peacock show. I think that it's one of the first and only Peacock shows I'm interested in. Like
Yeah,
as
exactly.
from an original standpoint. Twisted Metal is also a Peacock original, so that tells you the level that
I will
Peacock
say
normally
though,
is.
if you're looking for a good Peacock show, watch Ryan Johnson's Poker Face, or sorry, Ruin Johnson.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, but seriously, it's a great show if you're like into like crime detective kind of stuff, like whodunits and everything like that. Which we know Ryan Johnson is like a master at making those kind of stories.
True.
But yeah, it was the first Peacock show that I've seen where I was like, wow, this is like a really solid original. Because Peacock isn't a terrible app. It's got some good stuff on it in terms of its library, but as far as originals go, it's pretty behind compared to other streaming services.
Yeah, and I think that's an NBC thing. It's like NBC really had their time in the sun, and now they're suffering for it. And they had like The Office, Parks and Rec, um, things I'm now blanking on. Brooklyn Nine-Nine was there for a while. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it has great stuff. It just for its original programming, it's not great.
Yeah,
But that's a podcast for another time. Um, yeah, and I guess the last little news story here that we got, because we covered the Last of Us stuff. So Sony Santa Monica is apparently hiring for the next God of War game. Um, we don't know any more details on that. Um, but that's exciting nonetheless. Whether that's a spin-off or the next proper, huge um God of War game. Ragnarok was impeccable. It was fantastic. So the only little last thing I would say is that I know I've given, PlayStation and Insomniac a lot of slack for, just continuing to say fall 2023 and not giving us a release date. Insomniac has confirmed that we are getting a release date soon. And I know that that's not bad. I just wish we had gotten it at the showcase and not afterwards.
Agreed.
But they have said that they will give adequate time for pre-orders and presumably a collector's edition like they did for the first one. Sony's pretty pragmatic in terms of putting out collector's edition statues and collector's editions. So yeah, they said they're going to give adequate time. They will announce the date before it goes up so that you can be prepared. You'll have the money sorted and whatnot, because that's what they want. They want your money, but they're doing a bad job of trying to get it. But again, I think that's gonna wrap up this episode of the Casket Minds podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. This is our second episode, and we are having a blast. Thank you so much again for all of the support, sharing, liking, subscribing, commenting, telling your friends. We are on Spotify and Apple right now. We might try and do a little bit of more of like the third party stuff, like Pocket Casts and stuff like that. We're gonna look into that because I know a few of my buddies use that service for their podcast needs. But yeah, we're on the big things. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple. So if you listen to podcasts there, we are on there. Please give us a rating and subscribe so that it helps the algorithm. It helps boost our podcast up to more listeners. So please continue to do that and support us via that way. We will be back next week with Summer Game Fest predictions, as I believe it's the following week that the Summer Game Fest is. So we're gonna have a good little lengthy talk about what we think. We're gonna bring back the predictions game for the Summer Game Fest, and then we'll be back shortly after that with the predictions for Xbox, and we'll be wrapping up the Summer Game Fest like we did here, and talking about that. So until next time, thank you guys so much for the support. Keep it up, and we'll see you next week.